This is the next part of our critical path analysis. We're going to look at dummy activities. So you've got some notes there, which hopefully you've read through about these, which means you should be able to have a go at these questions. You're welcome to have a go at them first if you want, but I would probably watch the videos, or certainly if you get stuck, watch the videos or use the videos to check that you're doing the right thing. So let's just get my laptop sorted. Sorry about that. And changing orientation, we're sorted. So let's have a look. Draw an activity network for this precedence table using exactly 2 dummies. So we'll see why the dummies come about and why we can't do without them. This is how we have to proceed with this. So we can have our first one, I can call it 0, we'll call it 1. A doesn't require anything, so we're just going to have A going out by itself. There are 3 activities that require A, so B, C and D all require A. So I'm going to need 3 arrows coming out of this for B, C and D. Okay, remember you should be using a ruler and a pencil for this. So B, C and D all require A. Now if you look a little bit ahead, E requires B and F requires B and C. So if we put B up here, and then we can put C here, we can put D here. Again, we might have to adjust this, so just bear with it. We'll see what happens. E requires just B, so I'm definitely going to have E coming out of B. But F requires B and C. And now I've got an issue because E just requires B, so E has got B before it already, but B's already got an end point to it. So if I want F to require B and C, I'd kind of have to send C here as well, because then I need B and C to work for F. But I can't have this situation where I've got 2 arrows from one event to the same thing. And also this would suggest that E requires B and C, and E doesn't, it just requires B. So we're going to need a dummy here. And to draw a dummy, so E requires B, we've got that, so F requires B and C. So in order to indicate that, well, we know that F requires C, nothing else requires C, so we're quite happy with F coming out of C. So F has got to come out of here. But because it requires B as well, and B is already taken into account, the way I do this is to introduce a dummy with a dotted line, and that means that F depends on C happening, and also on B happening through the dummy. But it's not affected E, so E still just depends on B. But I've got now B and C working towards F, which is what I want. So that's how I use a dummy in these questions. So there's the first one anyway. So then we've done A, B, C, D. We've got E requires B done. We've got F requires B and C done. G requires D and F. Okay, and again, I can't have D and F same place, because if let's say I do that, which is fine because I've not got 2 activities going from one node to another. They're both coming from separate ones. F is coming from 4, D is coming from 2, that's fine. I've had to curve D, but I could always straighten F out and make it work still. But what will happen here is if I do this and think, yep, great, G comes after them, that's fine. And then when I get to H, I get a problem, because H just requires D. So now if I'm drawing something out of here, this suggests that H requires F and it requires D, which is wrong. So I can't write it like this. So I'm going to have to take into account the one that has only one dependency. So if I look at D, H requires just D, so H has to come out of just D like this. Okay, there's no way around that because it just requires D. But G requires D and F, so now in order to get G out of here, I put a dummy here, and that means I can write G here, and now G has got F preceding it, and it's also got D preceding it via the dummy. It means that D doesn't have to, it means that we can make H work. And this is where it's a little bit more confusing, and this takes a little bit of practice, but you'll get used to it. And you can always check, what's G got before it? It's got F coming before it, great. Has it got D coming before it as well? Yes, it has via the dummy. H has just got D before it. Then I requires G and H. So now if I just tweak this slightly, I can have H going up like this. 5, 6, 7. And then I comes after this. Okay, and also we don't want to have E. E's got to go somewhere. Okay, but if you look at the precedence table, E does not go before anything. Once E is done, E depends on B. But once you've got E, it doesn't depend on anything. So E can go straight to the very end because it's not used for anything else. So I can connect it directly here and call that E, and then I've only used 2 dummies. So it gets a bit more involved the more activities you've got. And depending on how these precedents set up, you've got to be very, very careful. My advice on this is check the activities which have just one thing coming after them. One thing coming before them. So E requires B. So therefore, and just B. Therefore, B has to come before E. And if there's another activity that requires B as well, you're going to have to use a dummy to get there. So in this case, F requires B as well. But if I put both activities go into one place, then that suggests E requires B and it requires something else. So pick the activity, same at the bottom. H just requires D. So get the H done, and then if D is required for something else as well, we're using a dummy to get there. Same with B. E requires B, but if B is required for something else, I can use a dummy to get there. We always write the dummies with dotted lines. Okay, that's the first one. Remember, you can pause the video and you can slow it down if you need to after I've spoken, so you can think about it. This activity network contains a dummy. Draw a precedence table. So here we're just doing it kind of backwards. So again, we're going to have our list of activities and our depends on. And then we'll get the ruler out. It's in the right place already. It's lucky. Let's get this set up. And then if we just check our network here, we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H. So we can just write them all down so we don't miss any out. So long as we know our alphabet, which we should do by now, doing further maths at A level. Okay, so A and B, they don't depend on anything. There's nothing before them. So we can put a little mark there to indicate that, or write NA or something. C and D both require just A because they're coming out from A. So they'll just have an A before them. E is here. E just requires C. Nice and easy. But F is a little bit different. Here's F. So before F, we've got B, we've got D, but we've also got C via the dummy. So all 3 of them are before F. So B, C, and D, all required. G is here. What does G have before it? Well, it also has B, D, and then C via the dummy. So we're going to need all 3 of them again, B, C, and D. And then H is this one. H has got E and F before it, so H requires just E and F. And then obviously H and G are done. H and G, there's nothing after it, they're not used for anything. And that's how we get a precedence table from the network. This is probably a little bit easier than drawing the network because it's quite easy to see what's going on. Then on to question 3. So draw an activity network for this precedence table using exactly 2 dummies. So a little bit of a shorter one, and then explain the purpose of the dummy. Sometimes they throw that in for a couple of marks, so we need to know our little phrase for explaining that. But let's get our activity network drawn. I think I've got hair on my pen. Hold on a second. So we're sorted. It's not. Okay, so we've got P and Q. Still doing it, this is really annoying. Which don't require anything. R and S both require P. Hold on a second, sorry, I have to sort this out first. Okay, I think I fixed it. Yes, so P and Q don't require anything, so they can come straight out. R and S both require P, but T is going to need P and Q. So when I'm doing this, I want to write R here, RS here, but T is going to have to come after P and Q. So T is going to have to come here. Okay, where I dummy P through here to show that T depends on P. Sorry. T depends on P, and it depends on Q as well. But R and S, again, think about what I said before. The ones that have single dependency, R and S have to come after P. They can't go anywhere else. So I'd have this. Okay, but I also have a problem here, because if I start to connect these up, then it looks okay in principle, but I've got R and S going to the same place. I'm just not allowed that. So I've got to dummy one of these. Doesn't matter which I do, I could dummy S or I could dummy R. Because I've drawn R at the top, I'm going to dummy R, so I'm going to create something here. And I'm going to dummy R through that to get to the final bit here. Okay, because I can't have two activities going from one event, number 2, to number 5. I can't have that happening and that happening. Okay, it's not allowed. So if that circumstance arises, I've got to dummy in order to get this. Seems a bit silly, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so this shows just a quick check. P and Q don't depend on anything, nothing here. R and S depending on just P, that's fine, because P, R, and S. Make life difficult for myself rubbing this out. There we go. T requires P and Q, so I've got my Q and I've got P via the dummy, and I've ensured that there's another dummy to make sure I don't have two events going from one activity. And then explain the purpose of each dummy. So the first dummy, I could just call dummy 1, and the second dummy I'll call dummy 2. So dummy 1 is there because R and S depend on just P, whereas T depends on P and Q. And the second dummy, this is so that R and S don't share the same start and end event. We call the activities on the arcs, and we call events, they're like the nodes, they're like the numbers here. Okay, make sure you learn these little phrases. So R and S depend on just P or P only. You could write P only there if you wanted to. Whereas T depends on P and Q, that's the point of the first dummy to show that T has to have both, but R and S can only have P. And the second one is just so that we don't share the same start and events. So if you just learn those two set phrases, if they ask that question in your exam, then you're hopefully sorted. And one more to do, number 4, this is a little bit longer, using the minimum number of dummies. We've got a minute and a half left, so if I rush, just pause. So, A and B, no activities before them. So if we have a look here, C requires A and B, but let's pick the ones that have just one, so D and E both require just B. So I'm going to have D and E coming out of B. C requires A and B, so C is going to come after A. But it needs B, so we can dummy B through here. We have to dummy because D and E require just B. F requires just C, so that's fine. We can put F in after here. G requires C and D, so again that's good because C and D for G. If I'm going to use C now, I'm going to have to dummy it because F just depends on C, so we don't want anything else messing with F. So we've got to dummy to make F. Oops, sorry. Dummy C because G requires those two. And H just requires E. That's fine, because I can now just write H here just after E. We have our 7 here. F and G aren't used for anything, neither is H. There's nothing depends on F, G or H. So I can actually send all of these to the same end event. And we are done with 2 dummies for this. And that's how dummies work in these critical path videos. Remember, pause them if you need to slow down or go through the explanation again.